Wall Street lied to you. They told you to save $100 a month, let it compound, and you will be a millionaire. In 2026, that is financial suicide. Here is the $20,000 Rothschild rule they hide from you. Look around you right now. It is April 2026, and the global economy is quietly executing the most brutal wealth transfer in modern history. The media will not tell you this. Your financial advisor will not tell you this. And the banks are actively praying you never figure it out. There is a hidden financial threshold, an invisible line drawn in the sand by the financial elite. That line sits exactly at $20,000. If your liquid net worth is below $20,000 right now, you are trapped in a system designed to slowly bleed you dry. The financial gurus on the internet have sold you a beautiful, comforting lie. They preach the magic of compound interest. They tell you to buy a cup of coffee at home, take that extra $5, put it into a low-cost index fund, and wait 40 years. They promise you an 8% annual return. They show you a chart that goes up and to the right, proving that time in the market beats timing the market. But they are leaving out the physics of money. You see, money has gravity. Wealth operates exactly like astrophysics. When you are standing on the surface of a planet, gravity pulls you down. To leave the planet, a rocket needs to reach what scientists call escape velocity. If the rocket does not have enough fuel to hit that exact speed, it does not matter how hard the engines push. It will eventually stall, fall back through the atmosphere, and crash into the dirt. In the financial universe of 2026, inflation, taxes, and the skyrocketing cost of living are the gravity. The little bit of interest you earn on a few $1,000s is the weak rocket engine. It is mathematically impossible for that engine to overcome the crushing gravity of today's economy. A 5% or even 10% return on a $500 investment is $50. $50 over an entire year. Meanwhile, your rent went up by $300 a month. Your groceries cost $200 more every single month. The gravity is pulling you down faster than the compound interest can push you up. You are in a state of free fall. But the system has put a blindfold on you, telling you that you are flying. This is the poverty loop. Let us look at the reality of the situation in April 2026. The middle class is being hollowed out from the inside. The cost of basic survival has detached from wages entirely. When you take your hard-earned $100 and lock it away in a brokerage account, you are effectively giving the elite a free loan. They take your small deposits, pool them together into billions of dollars, and use that massive leverage to buy up the real estate you can no longer afford to live in. They use your money to buy the assets that appreciate, while you are left holding a digital number on a screen that buys less bread today than it did yesterday. The lie of compound interest for the working class is the most successful propaganda campaign ever orchestrated by the financial sector. It is designed to keep you docile. It keeps you working your 9-to-5 job, patiently waiting for a retirement at age 65 that is never going to come. Because by the time you reach 65, that $1 million they promised you will barely cover a few years of medical bills and basic housing. The 1% know this. The oldest money families in the world, like the Rothschilds, did not build their dynastic wealth by dollar cost averaging into an index fund. They understood the physics of poverty, and they knew that the first and only goal of a beginner is to achieve escape velocity. They knew that below a certain threshold of capital, passive investing is a mathematically flawed strategy. Today, I am going to prove to you why everything you have been taught about money is keeping you broke. I will show you the exact math of why your savings account is a trap, and I will reveal the active leverage strategy the elite use to shatter the $20,000 barrier.
Educational and historical content only, not financial advice.
Let us break down the brutal math of the middle-class illusion. I want you to imagine that you do exactly what the financial gurus preach. You work hard, you sacrifice your weekends, and you manage to save $500 every single month. You put that money into an S&P 500 index fund. You are doing everything right according to the textbook. If we assume a standard 8% return, At the end of year one, your $6,000 in savings will have earned you roughly $240 in interest. $240. In 2019, that might have covered your utility bills for a month. But welcome to April 2026. Real inflation, the kind that actually affects your daily survival, is not the 2 or 3% printed in government press releases. It is the cost of a carton of eggs, a gallon of gas, and the monthly rent for a one-bedroom apartment. In 2026, a $240 return on your capital is entirely swallowed by just one trip to the grocery store. Your purchasing power is bleeding out faster than your interest is compounding. Your $6,240 buys less today than your $6,000 bought 12 months ago. You are running on a treadmill that is accelerating while your legs are getting heavier. This brings us to the greatest trick the financial industry ever pulled, the illusion of time. Wall Street tells you that time is your greatest asset. They say just leave the money there for 30 or 40 years and compounding will do the heavy lifting. But here is the terrifying reality. When your liquid net worth is below $20,000, time is not your friend. Time is your absolute worst enemy. Why? Because below that threshold, every single financial emergency is catastrophic. When your car breaks down, when a medical emergency strikes, or when your company decides to downsize to cut costs, you do not have a robust capital shield. You are forced to sell off those small investments just to survive, triggering taxes and penalties, and completely resetting the compounding clock back to zero. You never actually reach the future where compounding matters because the present constantly demands your capital. This is the poverty loop in its purest, most mathematical form. It is a system perfectly designed to harvest your small capital over and over again. When millions of regular people deposit $200 or $500 a month into the market, they create a massive, stable pool of liquidity. The giant financial institutions take that ocean of small retail money and use it to execute high-frequency trades, fund massive real estate acquisitions, and secure loans at interest rates you will never have access to. They are using your capital to achieve escape velocity for themselves, while tossing you pennies in passive returns that do not even cover the inflation they helped create. The harsh truth is that compound interest on a small amount of money is not a wealth-building tool. It is a capital retention tool for the banks. It keeps you invested in a game you are mathematically programmed to lose. To win, you have to stop playing their game. You have to look at the people who actually designed the financial system. You have to look at the old money, the elite bloodlines, and understand how they built their empires when they were starting out. They did not do it by saving spare change. Let us travel back in time and look at the foundation of the most powerful banking dynasty in human history. The Rothschild family. Mayor Amschel Rothschild started in the slums of Frankfurt in the late 1700s. Do you honestly believe he built his empire by taking a fraction of his daily income and putting it into a safe, low-yield government bond? Do you think he sat around waiting 40 years for the magic of compound interest to make him wealthy? No, the elite understand a fundamental truth that you do not. When you are starting from zero, passive investing is a luxury you cannot afford. It is a distraction. Instead, the Rothschilds utilize two powerful concepts that the modern financial industry desperately wants you to ignore: active leverage and asymmetric risk. What is asymmetric risk? It is a scenario where the downside is strictly limited, usually to the time and effort you put in, but the upside is virtually infinite. When your net worth is under $20,000, your capital is fragile. You do not have enough money to make money. But your ability to work, your ability to learn, and your ability to spot inefficiencies in the market, those are your true, unlimited assets. The elite know that the journey from $0 to $20,000 is not an investment phase. It is an accumulation phase. It is a war. And you do not win a war by defensively hoarding a few bullets every single month. You win by going on the offensive. The Rothschilds built their initial capital through aggressive, highly concentrated moves. They leveraged information before anyone else had it. They built networks. They developed highly specialized skills that allowed them to command massive fees from the European aristocracy. They were not earning a safe 8% return on $100. They were earning a 1,000% return on their knowledge and their time. They were actively forcing their wealth into existence. If you study the history of any self-made millionaire, they follow this exact same blueprint. They do not get rich from the stock market. Let me repeat that. They do not get rich from the stock market. The stock market, real estate, and index funds are where the elite park their wealth to protect it from inflation after they have already made it. They get rich by building a business, by mastering a high-income skill, and by scaling their active income until they violently shatter that $20,000 barrier. If you are sitting at home right now, in 2026 with $5,000 to your name, and you are stressing out about whether you should buy tech stocks or gold, Nate, you are asking the wrong question. You are playing the wrong game. The financial markets will not save you. A 10% gain on $5,000 is $500. That will not change your life. That will not pay your rent. But taking that $5,000 and using it to acquire a skill that doubles your active monthly income presents you, that is how you build a rocket engine powerful enough to overcome the gravity of poverty. That is how you achieve escape velocity. That is the true Rothschild strategy that Wall Street prays you never figure out. So why is $20,000 the magic number? It is not just a random figure pulled out of thin air. In the economic landscape of 2026, $20,000 represents the exact mathematical tipping point where your money finally has enough mass to generate its own gravitational pull. When you hit $20,000 in liquid capital, the math flips in your favor. A conservative 10% return on $20,000 is $2,000 a year. Suddenly, the interest you earn is no longer just pennies to buy a cup of coffee. It is enough to cover a month of rent in many cities. It is enough to pay for a sudden medical emergency without forcing you to liquidate your core portfolio. The rocket engine has finally surpassed the crushing gravity of inflation. This is the critical transition from linear income to the very beginning of exponential income. When you are below this threshold, you are trapped in a linear existence. You trade 1 hour of your life for a fixed amount of dollars. It is a physical, exhausting grind. But once you violently push past that $20,000 mark, a profound psychological and structural shift happens to your wealth. Your money starts working the night shift. It starts acting as a defensive wall against the relentless rising costs of the modern world. You are no longer just surviving. You are finally in a position where passive compounding actually begins to mean something. But here is the brutal reality that no one wants to talk about. Getting from $0 to $20,000 is the most painful, agonizing, and frustrating phase of your entire financial life. It requires an amount of effort that seems completely disproportionate to the reward. Why is it so hard? It is pure behavioral psychology. Human beings are biologically wired for immediate feedback. When you work tirelessly for 6 months, take on extra shifts, cut back on every single luxury in your life, and you watch your bank account slowly crawl from $0 to just $3,000, your brain screams at you to give up. The progress feels entirely invisible. You look at your peers buying new cars on credit, posting vacations online, living the fake rich lifestyle, and you feel like you are doing everything wrong. You feel like you are failing. This invisible, grinding phase is exactly where the system traps the 99%. The financial elite know that human nature will cause most people to quit before they ever reach the tipping point. They know you will get tired, you will get frustrated, and you will eventually blow that hard-earned $3,000 on a lifestyle upgrade just to feel some temporary relief. And the absolute moment you do that, you fall right back into the gravity well. You reset the clock. You surrender your escape velocity. To break the poverty loop, you must understand that accumulating your first $20,000 is not about earning interest. It is a sheer, brutal test of your psychological endurance. It requires a relentless, almost obsessive focus on multiplying your active income, while ruthlessly defending your capital from the temptations of a consumer-driven society. This brings us to the most urgent part of this documentary, the reality of April 2026. Right now, as you watch this, the global financial system is experiencing what insiders call a liquidity choke. The easy money era is completely dead. The elite, the massive hedge funds, and the institutional investors are quietly pulling their money out of speculative assets. They are not dollar cost averaging into a fragile market. They are executing a mass exit. They are raising cash. They are building what is known as dry powder. Because they know that a massive wealth transfer is imminent, and you cannot buy distressed assets at the bottom of a crash if your money is already tied up in a losing portfolio. But what is the average retail investor doing right now? The middle class is doing exactly what the system trained them to do. They are catching falling knives. They are taking their extra $300 a month and throwing it into a volatile market, hoping for a miracle rebound. They are bleeding out their limited capital right before the greatest buying opportunity of the decade. If your net worth is under $20,000 today, you are in the danger zone. You cannot afford to lose 30% of your portfolio in a market correction. So, what is the Rothschild protocol for a moment like this? What is the actual survival strategy for 2026? First, you stop the financial bleed immediately. You stop blindly throwing small amounts of money into index funds or crypto, hoping to get rich slow. You step out of the casino. Second, you adopt the dry powder strategy. Your only financial goal right now is capital preservation and aggressive accumulation. You hoard cash. You cut your lifestyle down to the absolute bare minimum. You stop caring about looking wealthy to people who do not care about you. You enter a state of financial lockdown. But hoarding cash is only half the equation. You cannot save your way to $20,000 in an inflationary environment. You have to force your way there. This means pivoting 100% of your energy away from passive investing and pouring it entirely into active income. You take a fraction of your dry powder, maybe $500 or $1,000, and you invest it directly into your own brain. You acquire a high-income skill that the market desperately needs right now. Sales, copywriting, digital infrastructure, specialized consulting. You find a bottleneck in the economy of 2026, and you become the solution. You leverage the internet to disconnect your income from your local geography. You do not need a 10% return on a stock. You need a 200% return on your active labor. You work the weekends, you skip the vacations, and you aggressively stack cash until you violently shatter that $20,000 barrier. You build your war chest. And when the liquidity choke finally breaks the market, and the assets of the middle class are put on sale for pennies on the dollar, you will not be a victim. You will be sitting there with $20,000 of dry powder ready to buy the bottom. That's how generational wealth is actually born. That is the physics of money.